Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third in our Listen Up series from BOHS and the UK Hearing Conservation Association. Today's session is Listen Up, Let's Make Noise about acoustics, with presentations from Alex Wilson, the Honorary Secretary of BOHS, and Andrea Harmon from Icophone. I will pass over now after to Alex Wilson to begin, who's doing a brief introduction. I should say, sorry, before I start, we do a Q&A at the end of these sessions. So if you have any questions for either of our speakers today, just pop it into the chat box and we will look over them at the end when we have time. Hopefully we should have 15 minutes at the end there just to run through any questions. Anything we don't get to, we will include in an email after the session's over with a link to the recording of this webinar. So without further ado, I shall pass you over to Alex.
Thanks, Lee. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. As Lee said, this is the third in the series of the series on kind of let's make noise about hearing, and it's something that I know the BOHS and the UK Hearing Conservation Association is passionate about. So as Lee said, I'm the Honorary Secretary of the BOHS, but I'm also proud to be a trustee of the UK Hearing Conservation Association as well. So it's my pleasure to kind of champion and sponsor the At Work interest group of the UKHCA, and all of these individuals who are presenting throughout these series are kind of linked to the At Work working group within the association. So we really appreciate everybody who is kind of giving up their time and giving their knowledge for you guys to kind of find out a little bit more about different aspects of noise and hearing conservation in the workplace. But I think today as well, we'll also kind of think about the wider workplace. So we've got a very interesting session for you today, which is good. I'll introduce Andrea now before I forget to do so, before I whiz through some slides. So Andrea Harmon, she's a concept developer of healthcare for Saint-Gobain Ecophon. So they manufacture and develop acoustic solutions to contribute to improving interior environments. So she's worked in the field of room acoustics for more than 20 years, helping to create spaces and link kind of acoustically with the needs of the users of those spaces and the activity that's taking place within those environments as well. So she's very active in developing a connection between noise and the well-being side of things, and investigating how acoustics kind of feel of a room can affect people's performance, people's interaction, and people's social inclusion as well. So it's kind of going that one step further today from kind of the normal factory workspace that we often talk about to this ever increasing kind of wider workspace that we need to kind of really consider. So we're really looking forward to hearing what Andrea has to say. Just before we start, obviously these sessions, we want to kind of make everybody aware about the UK Hearing Conservation Association. It's still a new group. It's been supported by a number of people as well as groups like the BOHS. It's something that we're really keen to kind of share our passion and try and get this platform as much as possible. So we appreciate you guys joining us. And the vision for UKHCA is that we want to share and make known our passion for, it says there, preserving, promoting and protecting the nation's hearing health. And that really is focused on different aspects of where we can find that within our daily lives. So it is at work, and as I said, a lot of these presentations are pulled from the At Work group, but it's also at leisure, educating young people within schools as well. We want to really promote, and we're very passionate about them. We've done some sessions before in schools before COVID. And another area as well is music and entertainment. So these are all areas that the group is passionate about, and is very active and currently active in pursuing our vision and our aims. So noise, why is noise a problem? So we all know exposure to significant noise levels can cause harm to our hearing, but there's more to that as well now, and it's also that unhealthy relationship that we have with noise. to an extent where we can overdo it. I can remember the days when I was coming out of the nightclubs with my ears ringing. I wish those were still the days, but anyway. But yeah, we do have the bad noise is kind of unwanted sounds. Sometimes we want it, sometimes we don't. It depends how we look at it. But there's also the social aspects of noise as well now that is kind of coming to light and seeing a very big impact on how people operate, not just personally but socially as well. So there's lots of different ways that we kind of can think about hearing health now and how that can really be promoted and looked after in lots of different ways that we find ourselves coming across in our lives. Here's just one example again of how quickly we can expose ourselves to noise in areas where we don't often think about, and the iPod generation, as it were, or the MP3 generation is very much on the forefront of damage from just an activity that we often never really thought about, such as the time it takes to have significant exposure just from listening to music, loud levels of music. It's very impactful, really. And the personal consequences that we measured before are things that we need to continue to take into account and also think about from a workplace perspective, the wider workplace perspective, but also in our own personal lives as well, in that the negative impacts that it has on our physical and mental health, on our social life and our family relationships, and also that it brings other aspects and other impacts as well, such as work life and impacts on our income if we're not able to work, and also then just the overarching quality of life. Things drop down because of the potential hearing loss, tinnitus that people may suffer from, and or stress or mental health related issues because of hearing loss. So these are all things that we really want to consider and try and take into account. Just the stats there that we shared previously, but these are quite eye-opening really, in terms of memory loss linked with hearing loss and dementia as well. So severe hearing loss, 5 times more likely to develop dementia if you've got severe hearing loss. 30 to 40% greater decline in the thinking ability compared to counterparts that have not got hearing loss. So these have got bigger, wider context really in what we're doing. So as Lee said at the start, today we're going to be looking at designing good noise control, and it's the third of 5. The next 2 that are coming up are on the 5th and the 19th of November, as you can see there. So the next session is your hearing protection actually protecting? So we're going to have some industry experts going through that one. And then again, another kind of quite a specialist subject really, but again, one that fits into the wider workplace, managing reproduced sound in office and industrial environments. So again, all interested in all contributions from the UKHCA members and associates, which is really appreciated. So get those in your diary. We appreciate the BOHS providing this platform, and it's definitely a shared aim and goal and passion of the BOHS, which is the Chartered Society of Worker Health Protection, which is his vision is a healthy workplace for all. So it's it's definitely a shared vision there. Any more information that you want to find out about the UKHCA or the BOHS, head to the website. Lee will be sending out a link to the recording of this session later, but also any other information that you want to find or share with UKHCA or BOHS. Here are some of the contact details there. So yeah, please get involved. Please join the journey. Use the hashtag. Get your presence on social media known, and I'm sure we'll jump on that and share with you. So just to set the scene really with regards to design of noise control, and we all too often think straight away when we think about noise, we think about hearing protection, and the bread and butter of an occupational hygienist's work, and that's what I am, is the hierarchy of control, and PPE is always at the bottom of that hierarchy of control. And the image up there is the one that I use in all the work I do as part of my profession. And it really shows there the business value and the effectiveness of control measures increase as you go up the hierarchy. And design is part of the top of the hierarchy. It's part of the elimination, because if you can design out your hazards, it provides us with an opportunity to remove those hazards from the workplace. No risk, no potential harm, and everybody is in a better position. Obviously, when we talk about hierarchy control, often we tend to think more about those noisy industrial environments. And I think what Andrea is going to share with us today is the opportunity to open that thought process up and actually kind of think about it in a much wider context. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Andrea now. Lee's going to swap everything over. Hope you enjoy the presentation. Look forward to the questions at the end, which I'm sure Andrea will be able to answer. And yeah, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for that, Alex. Yep, I'm just passing the presenter's baton over to you, Andrea, if you just want to share your screen. Excellent, we can see it.
Lovely. That's always the first hurdle. Thanks. Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to this presentation on the impact of room design, or room acoustic design, on people's health and well-being. It's really, as Alex said, it's really scene setting, and hopefully it's useful background information to you in your work. My name's Andrea, as already been mentioned, and my work for the last 25 years has been investigating how sound and noise affect us as people, so the human response to sound, and what we can do to improve or change internal sound environments. So this presentation has been made possible by my employer, Saint-Gobain Ecofon, who, and what they do is they manufacture high quality acoustic ceilings, wall panels and screens. And what we talk about reflects our mission statement, is that good acoustics are beneficial to the eye, the ear and the mind. Contents of what we'll have a little look at today is looking at how sound affects people and how this can be related to the activities that are taking place. We'll look at how design and furnishings within a space may help or hinder the movement of sound and the intensity of sound throughout that space, and then look at solutions to sound challenges. This information can be applied to many internal spaces, and although we're not talking about product, all the images that are shown in the presentation have excellent good room acoustics. So if there's anything that relates to an environment you're working in, we can discuss it in the question and answer session. In line with that, when we look at room acoustic design, we look at it from the perspective of the people who are using the space and what their needs may be, the activity taking place in the space. We don't want to create silent spaces, especially for music-based activities, and space itself, and design, its furnishings, the visual impact you want to make from it, how this affects how sound travels. But first, looking at how sound affects us as individuals. There are 5 fundamental factors that we consider for a good environment. And these are the considerations that we prioritize in an interior environment. So these are what we look for in both our work and our home environments. It's what we look to be right. And in line with that, these are the things that are usually the ones that we complain about if they're wrong. And those include room acoustics. But room design is still often focused on being visually stimulating, or on the other side, purely functional. And this noise has an effect on us as people. Looking at why we're so troubled by noise. Our ears were designed to work well in an outdoor environment, one without walls, one where the sounds we heard had a large impact on us and our survival. But over the course of time, we've built ourselves shelter and protection. And the walls we've built allow sound to move around the space in a way that is unnatural to our hearing and our brains. In our outside world, we had to react to noise, and our bodies still have the physiological reaction to sudden or unexpected sound. Our pupils dilate to see well, our muscles contract, and our heart rate increases, adrenaline is produced to aid us in fighting or fleeing whatever may be around. Sometimes, and if controlled, this can have a beneficial impact, this raise in stress, but often it causes additional stress, anxiety, and can affect a person's mood. In addition, we have a psychological reaction, sometimes expressed as a physical reaction to sound, that can be affected by many things, including our age, our hearing ability and hearing sensitivity, our previous experience and associations, and our mental and physical health, including the medication that we're taking. And talking more of hearing loss can affect how we respond to sound, particularly speech. We always like to think of hearing loss as something that affects older people. And whilst it's more common in the over 70s, it's now known that 40% of 50-year-olds will have hearing loss. And over the age of 21, all of our hearing has been affected by aging. So it's something that's very common in the workplace, especially with us all working longer. Up to the age of 21, or sometimes a lot less, you have a full range of human hearing, which is up to about 20,000 hertz, shown here. From that time, your hearing starts to fail. In your 40s, you usually lose the ability to hear to 15,000 hertz. So that's a quarter of your hearing range. And many 50-year-olds can't hear to 12,000 hertz. In your 50s and 60s, sometime during that time, you'll lose the ability to hear to 10,000 hertz. So that's half of your hearing range. And this affects your ability to accurately hear music. And you may need to start increasing sound signals. So things like turning up the television, turning up the music to overcome other sounds. Older people, especially those above about the age of 85, can often only hear to 8,000 hertz. And so by the age of 85, have often lost 2/3 of their hearing range. In addition to this, we become very sensitive to the sound that we can still hear. And for many people, this causes them additional challenges. In the UK, we usually take 10 years to get our hearing loss treated. And so for that time, it will have a huge impact on what we hear and how we communicate. So to show how this affects us, if you're older, have hearing loss, you tend to need a strong speech signal over background noise. And so the noisier the environment is, the less likely you are to be able to hear what's being said. This also applies when people are not speaking their first language. And what we do with the hearing is we lose the consonants from words, and it's the consonants that contain the information. Whilst the vowels, which have the strength in sound, are dominant, so that's the bit that we can still hear. But as you can see from this slide, it's really difficult to work out what's being said without the consonants. And the noisier the environment becomes, the worse this becomes. So just for those of you that were trying to work out what was written there, I've put it up on the screen for you. And noise leads to stress, especially if we already have heightened stress levels. And this is particularly noticeable in the workplace and with people who are ill, so many people who are in hospitals or in care spaces. Affects us in many ways, including physical effects on our heart, as shown in this graph, where the increases in noise level had a direct correlation with an increase in heart rate. Noise has been linked to increased risk of diabetes, obesity, and dementia. Whilst on a positive note, a good sound environment has been linked to improved sleep quality, increased concentration, and a reduction in recovery times for people in hospital. But we don't want to apply the same sound environment to every space. So activity becomes really important. Different activities may require different sound environments. So for example, in a sports venue, you often want to hear some background noise from the crowd to enhance the experience, but you don't want it to be so noisy that it affects comfort and performance. Whilst in a treatment room, you may want it to be quiet so that you can feel that the healthcare professional can really concentrate on the tasks that they're undertaking. Taking that further, many spaces are too noisy. In industry, you'd often like it quiet enough that people can converse, concentrate, and maybe not have to wear hearing protection, but often that's not the case. In hospitals, where you'd like to think that sound levels would be very low to aid sleep, rest, and recuperation, often they are not. In a UK study in a hospital in Birmingham, we measured the peak sound levels at 100 decibels. And that's the same as someone using a pneumatic drill close by to you. If we look at open plan office design, which is very popular nowadays, the actual design of the office, which we'll look at in a bit more detail in a minute, allows the sound to travel throughout the space. And the furniture and half finishes allow the sound levels to rise. And this has a negative effect on performance. And for children in schools, sound can affect their performance, but also for teachers. We know that a teacher has to raise their speech level to by about 20 decibels to be heard clearly over the background noise level. So if the background noise level in a classroom is 65 decibels, means that the teacher will be talking 85 decibels, which is shouting. So they'll be continuously shouting. And that's linked to noise being a contributory factor in teacher stress and teachers having absence from work. We also find this raising of the sound level applies in many other spaces, and that affects performance, stress levels, and people's safety. So what can you do about it? Before we look at solutions, we first have to look at how sound builds in a space. So as I said earlier, we're trying to do is replicate that outdoor sound environment without sound reflections inside a space. When looking at how sound travels through the building, your material choice is key. So thin materials tend to transmit sound. Build up here. Letting it travel to adjacencies. This is particularly noticeable with low frequency noise such as machine noise, and the thinner materials are things such as single glazing and single layer plasterboard. Whilst harder, more solid, smoother materials tend to reflect sound back into a place. So it doesn't travel to the adjacency, but it allows sound to build up within that space. Sound absorption is often provided by softer materials, and that's where the sound is absorbed so that it then doesn't reflect around the space. And diffusion, sound diffusion works really well with sound absorption. Uneven surfaces of furniture, things like bookshelves, help break up the sound and diffusing it. So by breaking up the sound waves, it then allows them to be absorbed. And generally, in many spaces, for ease of cleaning, longevity of wear, the materials that we use today tend to reflect sound, allowing it to build up in the space by bouncing off of the surfaces and back into the room, so raising the noise levels. In addition, if you have a longer, thinner space, such as a corridor, which is shown here, an open plan office, or many machine lines in factories, then the sound travels along the space, propagates, and is able to be heard over some distance. In addition to that, in any room that is designed as a cube or a room that's designed as a rectangle where the length, width and height have dimensions that are divisible by each other, it exaggerates certain frequencies of sound. So certain types of sound will be exaggerated within that space and have huge dominance. And these are quite often, again, the sounds that people find annoying. And then we add in human behaviour. So when we go into a room that's noisy, when not able to hear speech clearly, what we do is we then tend to talk more loudly, so exacerbating the problem, because as the room becomes noisier, we then speak even more loudly, and so it goes on and on and on. This is often noticed in pubs and restaurants spaces. As the pub and restaurant becomes busier, we get noisier and noisier and noisier. This has also been linked in research to increases in stress levels and increases in aggression as that sound environment intensifies. So the solutions have to affect the challenges that we've just seen. And hearing protection is really important. And we often work with clients who want to reduce the sound level in a space, maybe to complement the hearing protection, or for times when conversation means it cannot go on or may need to be removed. Sometimes work practice or procedures can be affected so that noise is generated, so that less noise is generated, or people behave differently, so their behaviour has less effect on others. This may be something as simple as not having conversations near to where others are doing concentrated work tasks, or closing doors between noisy and quiet areas. But sound absorption can also be used to combat acoustic challenges and replicate that acoustic feel of being outside whilst indoors. Sound absorbers are classified from A to E, with a Class A sound absorber absorbing between 80 and 100% of the sound that hits it. So to give you an instance of the effect that this can have, this slide shows the changes in noise level by adding a sound absorbent ceiling in a factory making items for the pharmaceutical industry. So the red line was the sound level before, running just above 80 decibels, and the green line is the sound level afterwards, where it's much lower. Position 2, which which showed the most difference. The sound level dropped from 81 decibels before treatment to 69 afterwards. Not only did the reduction take the noise level lower than that required for wearing of hearing protection, it also had a valuable social and well-being effect on the people working in the space, who said that they noticed a big difference and that they enjoyed working in the area more now that they were better able to communicate. Affecting room acoustics can be done in many ways, and different solutions apply to different spaces. And people have different preferences for what they want to see. For example, in factories and hospitals, the key driver is often cleaning, and how the products used to affect the sound environment can be cleaned, disinfected, and this is more of a driver than the aesthetics. Whilst in an office, it's usually more focused on making a design statement. With that in mind, how you affect the room acoustics can also be done in ways that are really obvious. So on the left-hand side of the slide, the big circles of product absorb sound in a way that's expected. So in the middle slide, it's a sound absorbent ceiling, which in a workplace office type environment, that would be what you expected to see. But sometimes it can be in a way that's less obtrusive. So in the right hand slide, it's the ceiling and the wall panels, but it's sort of not really noticeable as that. And if involved in a project at the design stage, then good room acoustic design can be built in, which often gives you far more choice over what can be incorporated. So in summing up, solving room acoustic challenges makes an environment quieter and more restful, aids communication, aids concentration, helps to reduce people's anxiety and stress, and helps calm behaviour. It stops sound disturbing other people who may be undertaking concentrated work-based tasks, and aids listening and communication for people with hearing loss and those people not speaking their first language. Thank you for listening.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much for that, Andrew. Some really interesting stuff in there. I would invite everybody now to ask any questions that they might have for either Alex or for Andrea. We'll just give it a moment or two just to see if anything comes through. And if not, feel free to email any of the emails that you see on the slides today or myself at marketing@bohs.org, and we'll pass on the questions to be fed to the panelists and then back to you via email. Nothing just yet. I'll just give another moment. If there's nothing come through, we'll here we go. We've got one come through. So how common are acousticians involved in design?
Often it depends on the size of the project, is what we've found, and the type of the project. So yeah, within schools there's acoustic regulation now, so acousticians are often involved in the design of schools. And hospitals, if it's large new hospitals, they will always have an acoustician involved. sometimes for smaller projects, they don't have an acoustician as part of the team.
And do you feel they should be involved earlier rather than retrofit?
Yeah, always, because it gives far more choice over how you solve the challenges. So it's not retrofit can work, things can always be done, you know, retrofitted to space. So there are solutions, but there's less choice of solution than if something's designed in.
We've got the questions are flying in now. So what do you see as the biggest hurdle in achieving good acoustics in a workplace?
I think if an acoustician's not involved, it often is the actual design of the space. So we spend a lot of our time talking to architects about how you can impact acoustic design as well as visual design, but it's a message that we've got to get out to the wider world. And I often think that if noise had a color, so when you went into a noisy place, if you could see it, if it was blue wherever you went that was noisy, then we'd realize the impacts that it's having a lot more, and then, you know, people would be more concerned about it.
And is there any data available on productivity gains further to acoustic treatments?
Yeah, we've mainly based in the workplace or in schools. So we've got quite a lot of data on performance, children's performance in school environments, and we've got quite a lot of data based on workplace, usually office noise, and changes in productivity, increases in productivity.
And if working from home, with the kind of the nuisance noises that come with working from home, what improvements can be made to improve the acoustics and noise control within your own home?
Oh, I mean, obviously depends on your home. If you can have a space or a designated office, then that's better. If you can do that, and if that can be a little bit out of the way to everything else that's taking place, bearing in mind that you can't control children coming in and things like that, but if it can be a little way apart, then that's usually really good for many people. And this is where it gets quite interesting on sensory design and our personality type, because some people actually thrive from being in a slightly noisier environment, so want to keep connected to the sounds of the family. But if you're looking for a sort of peaceful environment, adding soft furnishings if you can, shutting the door if you can. You can add acoustic wall art. So there's sound absorbent wall art, which looks just like pictures on the wall, but absorbs sound. Having things on the wall, bookshelves, any old shelves to break up the sound, having curtains as opposed to blinds, all these things will help the sound environment.
And how useful, I think you just mentioned it there, how useful are the large obvious acoustic panels as opposed to, sorry, I think I've read sorry, wrong question. Does the entire wall have to be sound absorbed, or will one of the large picture panels you just mentioned suffice?
Yeah, if you're in your home office, it depends what other furniture you've got in your home office. But if you're in your home office, what you usually want, if you're doing a lot of online presenting, they say sit with the window in front of you, so that the so that the light comes in, and you look better on video. You know, you're not showing so glary or in shadow on video. So if you do that, you then find that the sound hits the glass and then comes back into the room. So if you place an absorbent panel on the wall behind you, that can actually work really well. But it does depend on what else, how big the space is and what other furniture you've got in it. If it's just you and an acoustic panel, then it might not be enough. If it's you and a carpet and a sofa and an acoustic panel and a bookcase, then yeah, it'll be fine.
And in a noisy industrial situation, how useful would those large obvious acoustic panels be?
Yeah, we've worked in quite a few factory type settings. Is usually in the food industry. We do quite a lot of work, and they prove really useful, especially they can be supplied in ones that are cleanable, and if they can be mounted so that, which people like, so that you can clean behind them, so they're slightly off the wall, that actually helps the acoustics. That actually helps the acoustics as well. So they're really, really effective. Usually you have a run along one wall. Again, it depends on the size of the space, but they work really well.
Yeah, I'll jump in there as well. So I've seen a number of examples of panels, absorbent and deflective panels used in, I would say, probably more of the hardcore manufacturing environments. And yeah, you're right, they're very, very effective. They can be used also to designate workplace spaces. So if there's different bays operating different machinery, you can use them not only for the acoustic absorbent materials, but then you can also kind of use them to designate different zones and areas. Especially as well, having panels on roofs to stop reflection, especially if it's an angled roof, is something which you see a lot of examples of. So if noise is coming and being reflected from one corner of the building, it goes up, reflected off the wall, or goes up from the noise source up to the ceiling. The ceiling can actually absorb the majority of that rather than reflecting it back at an angle to another part of the workplace. So yeah, no, I see second what Andrea is saying, that they're definitely, if used and designed properly, can be very, very effective.
And are there any occupations that you feel are often forgotten or neglected when it comes to good acoustics in a workplace?
Interesting question. I think from our experience, you seem to have good and bad in every work situation. So you can't generalize, because you have some excellent within every type of work environment. And often I think that it's because this connection with performance and concentration and stress isn't realized, is when you get the bad. So it's not that it's been left out on purpose, it's that it's not actually realized. So I wouldn't say one profession, although kitchens, industrial kitchens, and catering kitchens are often extremely noisy, and they don't think that there's anything that can be done to help. So again, it's realizing that there are things that can be done to help.
And you mentioned there that cleaning requirements may override acoustic, but what type of absorbent material is recommended for clean work environments? Thinking of noise from glass bottles used for food in a factory.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can only answer in relation to the products that we supply. But from the ones that we supply, we have a range of products called hygiene range, which are designed specifically for this. So I can't talk too much about the coatings, because it's part of the you know, what makes them special. But they have a reinforced coating that means that they can be cleaned, they can be disinfected. They have low ISO class, they have particle repellent surfaces. So there's a lot of research and development that in the industry that goes into making appropriate solutions for all types of environments.
And one final question, unless anything else comes in while you're answering it. Are there many options for walled areas in pharma environments where there is typically stainless steel or clean room paneling, where ceiling tiles are not enough on their own?
Again, the panels exist that could be used within those environments. So yes, there are options available, very much linked to the cleaning regime and particles, airflow resistance might come into it. So all these things, it's a matter of the right product for the right environment. But what I would say to you all is these products do exist. So it's not that there aren't products there. The products do exist.
We've had nothing else through, so yeah, if you do have any further questions, like I say, you can email myself at marketing@bohs.org and I can pass the questions on, or when I send the recording out later this afternoon, you can see any of the email addresses listed there and get in touch with our presenters today. So thank you very much for attending today. I hope you found it informative and engaging. Our next one, as Alex mentioned, is 2 weeks today, same time, so you'll see some emails go around about that sooner on social media, so hopefully we'll see you there. I'll thank you again, Alex, and thank you, Andrea, and we shall speak to you all very soon.
Okay, thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Andrea. That's a very interesting presentation. Yeah, hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thank you.